So, I actually have a bit of trivia to kick things off for this deep dive.
Oh, all right, lay it on me.
When you picture the massive global fashion empire that is Zara, what name comes to mind?
Well, presumably Zara, or I guess Inditex, right, since they are the
Uh,
parent company running the show.
Sure, but here's the thing. It was almost named Zorba, like the movie Zorba the Greek.
You are kidding.
I am dead serious. Amancio Ortega, the founder, was apparently a huge fan of the film. He had the molds made for the letters and everything, but right before they opened the first store in 1975, he realized there was a bar down the street with the exact same name.
So let me guess. The bar owner wasn't exactly thrilled about sharing his branding with a new clothing shop.
Exactly. He complained it would be way too confusing for his patrons. So Ortega had these letter molds already manufactured, and he just started scrambling them around on a table to see what else he could spell. And he ended up with Z-A-R-A.
That is incredible. I mean, it's strange to try and imagine a parallel universe where the world's largest fashion retailer is named after a quintessential 1960s film character. But I think it really speaks to just how humble their beginnings actually were.
And that humble beginning is exactly what we are digging into today, because we are looking at Inditex, which is really the invisible machine behind Zara. Because when you actually sit down and look at the numbers,
Which are staggering, by the way.
right, it's not just a clothing company. It is a family business from Galicia, Spain, that somehow figured out how to beat every single major fashion house at their own game.
And not just beat them, but totally dismantle the rules of the game entirely. For today's deep dive, we've been combing through academic case studies on supply chain management. We've got leadership analysis documents and various business strategy articles. And what you find across all these sources is that Inditex acts less like a traditional retailer and much more like a high-speed data company.
So that's our mission today. We need to figure out this winning formula. How do they move clothes to stores so fast? Why do they essentially have an anti-marketing strategy? And honestly, how does a company of this massive global scale operate with the agility of a tiny tech startup?
It's essentially a masterclass in two main things: extreme vertical integration and a concept called customer co-creation.
Okay, let's unpack this right off the bat, because the thing that always makes me extremely skeptical about Zara when I read these reports is the speed. You hear these urban legends that they can design a shirt and have it hanging in a store in 2 weeks. That just sounds like marketing spin to me. The sheer logistics of that seem physically impossible.
It sounds impossible because the rest of the fashion industry operates on a completely different timeline. Historically, fashion runs on what's known as the two-season paradigm.
Spring, summer, and fall, winter.
Exactly. In that traditional model, designers are working 6, sometimes 12 months in advance. They're sitting in a room in Paris or Milan, essentially placing a massive bet on what they think you are going to want to wear next year.
Which, when you really think about it, is insane. I mean, I don't even know what I want to eat for lunch tomorrow, let alone what kind of lapel I want on a blazer next October.
It is insane. It's pure gambling. And that heavy reliance on long-term forecasting is exactly where the industry bleeds money. If they bet wrong, they are stuck with warehouses full of clothes nobody wants. But Inditex just entirely broke that calendar. They don't do 2 seasons. They do closer to 20 seasons a year.
20 seasons? That's barely a season. That's like a fortnight.
They call it rapid-fire fulfillment. While the industry standard for the design-to-retail cycle, meaning from the first sketch to hanging on the rack, is months new, Zara has compressed that down to as little as 15 days.
Okay, 15 days is incredibly fast, but does that actually translate to better business? Or is it just more chaotic business?
It allows them to operate on a completely different philosophy. There's a brilliant analogy that comes up in the supply chain case studies we looked at, the fresh fish concept.
Oh, I saw that, where they compare selling a dress to selling salmon at a fish market.
It sounds funny, but it's highly accurate. Think about a fishmonger. When the fish is fresh like caught that very morning, it sells quickly, and it sells at a premium price. People want it. But what happens if it sits on the ice for 2 days?
It starts to smell. You have to drastically lower the price just to get someone to take it off your hands.
Exactly. In fashion, unsold inventory is the rotting fish. The longer a jacket sits on a hanger, the less valuable it becomes to the consumer. You eventually have to slash the price just to clear up your floor space.
So the traditional fashion companies are essentially freezing their fish for 6 months and hoping people still want to eat it. Zara is catching it and selling it the exact same day.
Precisely. And the financial impact of this is staggering. Because they are so incredibly fast, they simply don't accumulate old fish. Zara sells about 85% of its products at full price.
85%.
Yes. And the industry average is somewhere between 60 and 70%.
Wow. So everyone else is basically running a permanent discount bin just to survive, while Zara is charging full freight.
And that creates a very specific psychological effect in the store, too. You've probably felt this yourself. If you see a shirt you like at Zara, do you feel like you can just come back next week to buy it?
No, absolutely not. I know for a fact it'll be gone.
That is their scarcity strategy. They deliberately display products for a strictly limited time, usually a maximum of 1 month. They are actively training you. They've conditioned their customers to impulse buy right then and there because the risk of missing out is very real.
It's highly manipulative, but undeniably effective.
The numbers certainly back it up.
Yeah.
It leads to incredibly high inventory turns.
Just explain that term for a second for everyone. Inventory turns.
Think of it like cash flow. If you buy $1,000 worth of shirts and it takes you a full year to sell them, your cash is tied up that whole time. You can't use it for anything else. That's one turn. Zara achieves about 12 inventory turns per year. Competitors usually do 3 or 4.
So they are flipping their entire stock every single month.
Essentially, yes. Their capital isn't stuck sitting in a warehouse. It's constantly being freed up and reinvested. It's a compounding financial advantage that their competitors really just can't catch up with.
But here is where I get stuck on the mechanics of it all. Speed is great, and turning over inventory is great, but you have to know what to make. If you make 15-day turnaround garbage that nobody wants, you're just failing a lot faster. How do they know what to make?
This brings us to what the case studies refer to as the nervous system of Inditex. And this is where most retailers get it entirely wrong. Most brands think of their physical retail stores as the under the pipe, the bucket where you dump the finished product to be sold.
Right, it's the cash register.
But for Zara, the store is the primary source of data. It's not the end. It's the very beginning of the supply chain.
So the store is listening.
Actively listening, and not just passively collecting receipts. Store managers at Zara aren't just people who fold shirts and organize the racks. They are equipped with custom PDAs, handheld computers. And they aren't just checking stock levels. They transmit hard data, like sales figures, sure. But more importantly, they're transmitting soft data back to headquarters.
Soft data being what exactly? Like customer gossip?
In a way, yes. Gossip about what isn't selling. For example, if 3 people come into the store and ask for a lime green skirt and the store doesn't carry lime green skirts, the manager punches that specific request into the PDA.
Okay, see.
Or even more granular than that. If customers are taking a specific jacket into the fitting room but leaving it behind because the zipper sticks, or maybe the fit is just weird on the shoulders, that specific human feedback goes straight into the PDA.
So they're capturing the why and the what. Isn't there not just the basic transaction data?
Exactly. Most companies only know what you bought. Zara knows what you wanted to buy but couldn't. And this raw data feeds into a very strict ritual called the offer and the order.
That sounds incredibly dramatic. The order.
It is high pressure. Twice a week, headquarters sends out the offer to the stores. This is a digital menu of everything currently available. But the store manager doesn't just blindly take whatever corporate sends them. The manager analyzes the offer, walks their own floor, looks at that soft beta they've been collecting checks. The local weather looks at what people are wearing out in their specific neighborhood, and then they place the order. They have a strict deadline.
So the store manager is basically acting like the CEO of their own location. They curate the shop based on their local reality.
Yes. And if they order wrong, their shelves sit empty and they lose money. But there's a crucial human element at headquarters receiving all this too. They are called the commercials.
The commercials. These are the country managers, right?
Yes. And the physical layout of their office in Spain is absolutely crucial here. They sit right next to the design teams. They act as the physical bridge. They take that data coming in from the store PDAs, saying Tokyo wants short skirts, but New York wants long coats. And they literally turn their chair to the designer sitting next to them and say, we need this right now.
I've actually seen photos of this workspace in the documents. It's not a bunch of quiet cubicles. It looks like a Wall Street trading floor. It's these massive open halls, one for women, one for men, one for children.
It is deliberately designed for friction-free communication. Designers' procurement and commercial teams are all co-located. There are no long email chains or scheduling a meeting for next Tuesday. They just shout across the desk. This setup allows them to handle an immense volume of ideas. They create around 40,000 designs a year.
40,000? That is absurd.
And they actually produce about 12,000 of them. Compare that to their competitors who might produce maybe 2,000 to 4,000 designs a year.
So they aren't just relying on raw creativity, they're completely data-driven.
It's more like data-informed creativity. They don't just guess. They look at street trends, club culture, and that constant stream of PDA data to spot latent demand before anyone else.
Okay, but this brings me to the absolute biggest hurdle in all of this. You can have all the data in the world and you can have a genius design team sitting right next to you, but physically making the clothes, that's the hard part. You can't just snap your fingers and have 10,000 tailored blazers appear out of thin air.
No, you need a body to go with that nervous system.
Yeah.
And the body of Inditex is their supply chain and manufacturing. And this is where they do something that makes most business professors scratch their heads. They completely defy the biggest business trend of the last 40 years, which is outsourcing.
Right, because the golden rule of fashion is you make it where the labor is cheapest, you send it to Asia.
Correct. China, Bangladesh, Vietnam. That's where the pure labor cost is the lowest.
Mm.
But Zara kept a huge chunk of their production, especially the trendy, fast-moving stuff close to home. This is vertical integration. They actually own the factories, the dye works, the logistics network.
Right. But wait, let's play devil's advocate here. Manufacturing a jacket in Spain or Portugal must be, what, 15 or 20% more expensive than making it in Bangladesh?
At least. Often more.
So how do they not go broke? If their cost of goods is fundamentally higher, their margins should be razor thin.
This is the absolute genius of their internal math. They realize that the cost of labor is not actually the biggest cost in fashion. The biggest cost is the mistake.
The mistake.
The markdown. If you make a shirt for $5 in China, but it takes 3 months on a boat to get here, and by the time it arrives, the trend is over and nobody wants it, you have to sell it for $2. You lost money. If you make that same shirt for $10 in Portugal, but it gets to the store in 15 days while the trend is red hot, and you sell it for $50, you win.
So they essentially pay a premium for speed because that speed acts as an insurance policy against markdowns.
Exactly. And to make that speed physically happen, they built a facility known as the Cube.
The massive distribution center in Artexo, Spain.
It's a total beast, 5 million square feet. But the visual detail that really highlights the scale of this operation is the underground tunnel network.
Yes, I read about this in the supply chain study. 211 kilometers of rails.
It's essentially a private underground subway system just for clothes. It moves fabric and finished garments between their cluster of local factories and the distribution center instantly. There are no delivery trucks getting stuck in traffic, no weather delays. It just moves.
So they do have some production in Asia, right? It's not 100% Europe.
Right. They use a strategy called proximity sourcing. It's a split model. If an item is basic, like a standard white T-shirt or basic sweaters that never go out style, they do outsource that to Asia. It's cheaper, and the speed doesn't matter because a white T-shirt is always going to be a white T-shirt.
Okay, that makes complete sense. You don't need a 15-day turnaround on plain socks.
But for the fashion items, the volatile, trendy stuff, that stays very close to home. Spain, Portugal, Morocco, Turkey.
Now, I want to touch on one specific manufacturing trick they use because when I read this, it was my biggest aha moment. I think it's the smartest thing I've ever heard in retail. The grige fabric.
Ah, yes. This is formally known in the literature as the postponement strategy.
So grige means undyed, right? Like raw, uncolored fabric.
Correct. Now, imagine you were a normal fashion company. You have to decide in January, we are going to make 50,000 red sweaters and 50,000 blue sweaters for September. You place the order with the factory, and you are completely locked in.
And if September rolls around and everyone suddenly wants green, you're dead in the water.
You're totally dead. Zara does it entirely differently. They buy massive amounts of the raw fabric, the grige, but they don't dye it. They hold it in the warehouse uncolored.
They own the physical material, but they haven't committed to the final look.
Exactly. They wait until the trend is actually confirmed mid-season. If the data coming from those store PDAs suddenly screams that red is trending, they rush that grige fabric over to their own dye works, dye it, red stitch it, and ship it.
So they deliberately postpone the specific color decision until the absolute last possible second.
It's an incredibly expensive way to operate if you are just looking at the spreadsheet line item for dyeing costs. But as a strategic hedge against uncertainty, it's priceless. Flexibility beats forecasting every single time.
It takes a lot of guts, though. You have to be ready to pivot the entire factory floor on a random Tuesday morning just because some influencers in London started wearing neon yellow.
Which requires a very specific kind of corporate leadership. You simply can't run a machine this fast with a slow bureaucratic hierarchy where you need 3 executive signatures just to change a zipper color.
So let's talk about that culture. Amancio Ortega doesn't run the day-to-day operations anymore, but he obviously set the tone for decades. And from what I gathered in the leadership analysis, he started out pretty authoritarian.
In the early days, yes, he was the sole mastermind. But as the company grew to a global scale, he realized that a top-down dictatorship is way too slow. The bottleneck becomes the CEO's desk. So the company systematically shifted to a much more democratic, or rather participatory model.
Which goes right back to those store managers we talked about earlier.
Correct. The organizational chart is almost completely inverted. The top management sets the broad global strategy, but the actual operational decisions, what we are making today, what we're sending it tomorrow, bubble up from the bottom.
If the store managers don't order it, the factory doesn't make it.
Exactly. And they extend this collaborative mindset outside the company, too. They use what they call clusters for their suppliers. They group manufacturers, unions, and raw material suppliers into geographic regions to foster collaboration. It's not just a purely transactional relationship. They need those outside suppliers to be just as agile as they are, so they treat them like true partners.
The Soles document from Martin Roll called it customer co-creation. I really like that term. It feels like we, the everyday shoppers, are accidentally designing the clothes just by what we choose to buy.
In a remarkably direct way, you actually are. Every time you buy something or intentionally refuse to buy something, you're casting a definitive vote. The customer dictates the design, not a celebrity creative director sitting in an ivory tower.
Speaking of things they don't have, I realized something quite profound while reading through all this. I never, ever see Zara commercials. I see H&M ads, I see luxury brand ads, I see Uniqlo billboards everywhere. I don't see Zara on TV.
That is strictly by design. Their advertising spend is minuscule. It hovers around 0.3% of their total sales. Competitors are routinely spending 3 to 5%.
That is hundreds of millions of dollars they are saving. So where does that massive pile of money go?
Real estate. They take that massive traditional ad budget and they dump it straight into prime locations. They want their front door to be right next to the luxury giants.
I have absolutely noticed that in major cities, they are always directly next to Gucci or Prada or Louis Vuitton.
That is the core retail strategy. If you are sitting right next door to Prada, the customer subconsciously associates your brand with that exact level of high-end luxury, even if your prices are a tenth of theirs. It's the halo effect.
So the store itself is the advertisement.
Yes, and they treat it with that level of respect. They invest heavily in historic renovations, gorgeous lighting, and very spacious layouts. They even meticulously prototype their window displays. Did you catch that detail in the strategy article?
Yeah, they have a fake street built inside their headquarters, right?
A fully built, physical mock-up of a shopping street. They design the actual window displays there, they test the lighting, they test the angles of the mannequins, and then they send a strict manual to every single store in the world saying, make your window look exactly like this.
It's total absolute control. But they are also using some serious back-end technology inside those stores to keep things moving. We mentioned the PDAs, but the RFID integration seems like a massive game changer for the usual messiness of retail.
RFID, which stands for radio frequency identification, is huge for them. In a normal retail store, inventory is an absolute nightmare. A customer asks for a medium, the rack is empty. The employee goes to the back room, digs through a messy pile of cardboard boxes for 10 minutes and comes back empty-handed.
Or they just lie and say we don't have it because they don't want to go look in the boxes. I've definitely suspected that a few times.
With RFID tags embedded directly into the security alarm clips, the computer system knows exactly where every single garment is at all times. Is it on the floor? Is it in the back room? Is it still in a delivery box?
And this unlocks their whole online potential, right? Because buying online and picking up in store is usually a logistical headache for traditional retailers.
It creates a true, seamless hybrid model. If you order a coat online and the algorithm sees that the Zara down the street from your house has that exact coat sitting in the back room, it doesn't ship it from a central warehouse across the country. It simply tells the local store to fulfill it.
It effectively turns every single retail store into a mini distribution center.
Exactly. It unlocks localized inventory that used to be essentially invisible to the online shopper.
And wait, didn't they also integrate all this into an app for the customer? The in-wallet app.
Yes, the in-wallet app. It completely consolidates your digital receipts and your payment methods. So if you do need to make a return, whether you bought it online or in a physical store, the whole process is totally frictionless. They use tech to remove any barrier to you interacting with the brand.
So putting this all together, we have the sheer speed, the real-time data from the stores, the manufacturing flexibility with the greige fabric, and the prime real estate acting as the marketing. It seems like a completely unbeatable machine.
It is a phenomenal machine specifically designed to eliminate uncertainty.
I knew there was a but coming.
Well, we do have to look at the long-term implication of this behavioral training they're doing to the customer.
You mean the scarcity strategy?
Right. One of the academic sources touched on a concept called strategic consumer behavior.
Meaning we are getting smarter about how they operate?
Exactly. Consumers aren't lab rats. They learn the maze. As people become more intimately aware of these fast fashion cycles, there is a tangible risk. Will the novelty eventually wear off? Will consumers realize that the scarcity is entirely artificial? Or, more importantly, will they figure out that if they just hold out, the items will eventually hit the clearance rack?
Or will we just get collectively tired of the treadmill? I mean, knowing that what I buy today is essentially old fish in 2 weeks is kind of psychologically exhausting.
There is also the broader sustainability angle to consider. Inditex is incredibly efficient, yes, but they are still producing massive volumes of physical product. If consumer values shift fundamentally towards slow fashion, meaning buying less, keeping it longer, mending it, the entire high-speed business model faces a genuine existential crisis. So the real question going forward is, will shoppers learn to wait out the cycle? Or will Zara's scarcity model continue to force them to buy at full price on impulse?
That is a really interesting thought to leave on. Their absolute greatest strength, which is their speed, could instantly become their biggest weakness if the world just collectively decides to slow down. Well, for now anyway, the cube is definitely humming along. Next time you walk past a Zara, just remember that the shirt in the window is probably just a roll of gray fabric 2 weeks ago, and it's only there because someone exactly like you whispered a complaint into a PDA on the other side of the world. Keep learning.
And keep an eye on those inventory turns.